Welcome to another off-season edition of the Last Minute Winner. It's post-Super Bowl time, so Conor and myself have come out of cryogenic freezing for the year.
Yeah, boy.
We've found another hatchling in Mark.
Hello.
Glad to be back. Going to talk some draft, kind of give everyone a kind of overview of what's happened in the off-season so far, which has been a little bit more hectic than I think people expected. But yeah,
a couple of things have happened since we last spoke on the podcast. I think just a couple.
Yeah,
just a few.
Just a couple.
Yeah,
just a couple. First of all, what did you boys think of the Super Bowl? What was your kind of takeaway of that?
I mean, I may call me a hater. I don't care. I didn't want to see Tom Brady get another one, but the Tampa Bay defense, I did really start to like more and more as the season went on. Like watching Devin White play, it's just like every play looks like he's been shot out of a cannon. And the overall team, I actually did quite like. The game wasn't as exciting as perhaps the last year, obviously, because it wasn't as close. But I was also happy for Bruce Arians, who, as soon as I watched that All or Nothing with the Cardinals, like he was like my favorite coach straight away. He seems like a genuinely good dude and getting up there in age. So I was pretty happy for him.
I kind of felt the same for Arians this year that I did for Reed last year. That he finally deserved to get there and win one as a head coach and actually do that. And
agreed.
It's rare that you root for a coach, but I would happily root for Arians every day. I think he deserves that ring. He's one of the good guys. And and I know it's been said a lot, but the diversity in his coaching staff as well. He's just been willing to let the best people do it regardless of anything, and it's shown in how much they've improved across the season.
And having the combination of Devin White and Levante David at linebacker doesn't hurt either.
No, that is very much a blessing to have, isn't it? Like to have one of those, you'd be happy. To have both is just somewhat selfish.
Linebackers have, like, over the last few years been kind of it's the position that's not really respected in terms of like draft picks and like free agent sort of salaries and stuff. But like in such a copycat league like the NFL, I guarantee you're going to see so many teams just going out trying to get like game changing inside linebackers when last year they didn't even really care about.
Okay, so just to recap a few of the major headlines that have happened in the off season so far. Start with the retirements. You've got perennial fantasy QB1 Drew Brees retiring from the New Orleans Saints, go and sit in a TV booth somewhere. Amazing career, but it looked like he suffered from the Peyton Manning noodle arm in his last season.
It was time, wasn't it? It was time.
It was, yeah. On top of that, Philip Rivers, the one-year quarterback of the Colts, and his gaudy release angles. They are no longer with us on an NFL stage anymore either.
Whenever I watch Philip Rivers, I don't remember. Do you remember the deodorant advert from back in the day where like they just keep their arms right by their side and it looked like the weirdest thing, almost like they were T-Rex? That's the only thing I can think of when I watch Philip Rivers. It's just the weirdest throwing angle and the weirdest arm movement that no one has ever done. No one will ever coach. And yet somehow, I mean, it worked to an extent. I mean, it doesn't have a ring, but it worked to an extent for him.
I've got a soft spot for Philip Rivers. The first NFL game I ever went to at Wembley. So I'm walking up with my pint and maybe even had a hot dog as well, walking up to my seats, and the game is just kicked off, right? First play of the game, I should say. Philip Rivers, Tyrell Williams, 75 yards, bomb, sidearm bomb. The first play I ever saw live of an NFL game, and for that reason, I'll always have a soft spot for Philip Rivers.
That's pretty cool. I just picture him as being what Jordan Pickford would look like if he was a quarterback.
He talks shit. He talks shit as well, like Jordan Pickford. That's one thing I miss about Philip Rivers as well. That guy talks the most shit on the field, like any of the mic'd up or whatever, and he never swears.
But say the most family-friendly shit as well.
Yeah, gosh dang it, and all that kind of American stuff.
When you have 11 kids, I guess you get used to it. Yeah. Okay, so the biggest trade the NFL has seen in probably a couple of seasons, I reckon, was one that kind of a lot of people didn't see coming or didn't expect the destination anyway. Matthew Stafford, quarterback of the Lions, for sins in a previous life, I can only assume, traded to the LA Rams and Sean McVay's funky offense. Going the other way, 2 first-round picks and Jared Goff, basically the headlines there. On paper, it looked like basically the Lions are taking Goff out of pity, but they've said they kind of want to roll with him moving forward. What did you guys think of that one?
It's set the bar, isn't it, for a QB market that we expect to be average? It has set the bar pretty high. Look, I think Goff. I can't see a loser out of this situation. The Lions get a bridge quarterback at worst, potentially someone who's former number 1 overall pick. Jared Goff gets a fresh start when clearly he's been struggling in LA. I mean, sure, he's got to go to Detroit, but new coach, new coaching staff, other than the weather, not the worst, I can think of a worse place to go, Jacksonville.
Whoa, buddy.
Shots
and then
fired.
Stafford finally gets a chance at a ring. McVay gets a QB he can trust. It's costly, yes, but the Rams have showed it. They're not scared to go and get the talent, spend those first rounders, because they're first rounders. They're a playoff team. They tend to be late 20s anyway. I can see wins on all sides there, really.
Yeah,
I think.
Connor,
I think.
Can you tell us who the Rams' last first-round pick was?
Jared Goff, right?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, Jared Goff. With this trade, I think you're saying it sets the bar high for the number of picks that were traded. But I think basically what happened was the Rams had to give up a first for Detroit to take the contract. So I think really what you're looking at is a first and a third for Matthew Stafford, and then a first round pick basically to take his huge gargantuan contract. I like it for all sides, really. I think Stafford, like you said, sins in a past life, has been in a terrible franchise. You can tell how much he hated Matt Patricia by the fact that the only team he didn't want to be traded to was the New England Patriots. So I think he gets a fresh start. Sean McVay gets someone who kind of opens up the downfield passing, because everything was sort of, short passing or intermediate. Never really that many deep balls in their offense. Even when they had Brandon Cooks, it didn't happen probably as much as it should have. The one thing we know about Matt Stafford, he's got an absolute cannon. And I think he just makes them more exciting, really. They've lost. This is the sort of second iteration of the Rams now, because we had the Goff and Gurley Rams, and now this is the next stage. So we'll see how good of a coach Sean McVay is. See if he can get him back to a Super Bowl again.
For sure. The only weird side of it for me was the fact that it was no secret that Les Snead, the Rams GM, and Sean McVay were feeling like they could improve at quarterback going into the offseason. But the reason behind that was mainly because they felt that with a more mobile quarterback, they could, the offense could evolve again and become something even greater than what it currently is.
Was it though, or was it the downfield passing? I think I kind of got the impression that the fact they just felt like they couldn't get teams out of the box and couldn't, because no one respected their downfield passing game.
There are a few comments after the game that John Wolford started. Was it week 17? Yeah, it was week 17.
Yeah.
About having a more mobile quarterback and what that would allow him to do. So if they're going to go for the mother load, there's one other guy who's a little bit more mobile, who's reportedly available for trade, that I'm kind of shocked that they didn't go for. And that is Deshaun Watson, quarterback for now of the Houston Abominations. So finally got rid of Bill O'Brien, the head coach and GM, rolled into one that didn't work for anyone apart from the Arizona Cardinals.
Hey, my Miami Dolphins did pretty good out of it too.
Yeah, that's a fair point. 2 firsts and a second for a left tackle is pretty solid. Yeah, so Deshaun Watson on the trade block. Given that Stafford essentially went for a first, a third, and whatever you want to evaluate Jared Goff's contracts to, what is realistic for a team going after Deshaun Watson?
Well, I think in the Rams case, they would have had to have given up the extra first round pick to get rid of Goff, because there's no way they could have fit both of their contracts under their salary cap.
No.
So I think realistically, it's kind of unprecedented. Like, I hate using that word now because Boris Johnson has just ruined it for me during this whole coronavirus pandemic. But yeah, we've not really seen a QB in his prime like Deshaun Watson, who for me is top 5 in the league, getting traded at the age of 25. Like, this has never been seen before. I think you're talking at least, I'd want 4 first-round picks as a starting point, because, like you said, Laramie Tunsil went for 2 first-round picks and a second. So the amount of value that Deshaun Watson adds in every aspect compared to someone like Laramie Tunsil, I mean, 4 first-round, it's got to be 4 first-rounders. That's where I'd start the bar at if I was GM.
The only issue is as soon as you go to 4, I think you're right. I think 4 first rounders is fair, but as soon as you go to 4 first rounders, you're counting out most of the teams in the league, because in order to do it, as far as I'm aware, in order to do a trade, you have to use those picks within 3 years. So you can't hedge the next 4 years worth of picks. So you're looking for someone who's got 2 first rounders. So that's the tricky thing that Texans are going to find himself in if they do demand that high.
Well, of course, the other thing as well is that, but of course, what you could do in that situation is just try and find a team that has some starters, perhaps on defense, that you could get back, as well as a couple of first-round picks. Someone like Miami, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm thinking is going to be more likely the case, that you look at probably 3 first-rounders and maybe 2 starting defensive players.
There was a rumor today from one of the bigwigs, Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport, saying about the Panthers being interested in him, given that he's a quarterback who played his college football at Clemson in Carolina. I mean, there could be some familiarity there. But anyway, the return could well be Christian McCaffrey and first rounders, apparently. So it would really shake up the NFL landscape if it were true.
I mean, I can understand the Panthers going, with David Tepper as your owner. He's a person who in his business world, in that banking world, is used to going after what he wants. And he's not going to balk at the idea of giving up those assets, whether it be draft picks or McCaffrey or whoever, to go and get someone who he thinks can make him into a Super Bowl team. That's what he's done for his career. I think him more so than anyone else in the league is that owner who will pull the trigger on it.
I think that's a great trade for the Panthers. Like, Christian McCaffrey, a great player, but we've seen how running backs deteriorate, especially on that second contract. So, and he's on a beastly contract as well. So I love the trade for the Panthers, because they're getting rid of someone who, there's a good chance in a couple of years, is going to be not the player he is today. And then 3 first-round picks, is a nice price for Deshaun Watson. He's going to change that whole team. They weren't that bad last year with Teddy Bridgewater, who, I mean, is, like his name states, is a bridge quarterback at the minute, pretty much, just around the league. So I think Deshaun Watson on the Panthers is a great trade for them. I don't like it for Houston. And because the Panthers spent all their draft picks last year on defensive players, they've got a young, talented defense, Jeremy Chin, Derek Brown. They've got a couple of good receivers in DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. So I like it. I think if they got Deshaun Watson, they could be, challenging for the Super Bowl in a year or 2. I
think as well, the thing the Texans got to think about this is not all first-round picks are born equal. If you send him across to Chicago, you're looking at, 20th, 21st pick this year. If you send him across the Panthers, you've got the 8th pick this year.
Yeah.
So, someone like the Bears is then going to have to probably add in a second, if not, an extra player or something else to sweeten that deal, because the amount of benefit you'll get from being at 8 rather than 20.
For me, I just think that this is a move you make if you are a quarterback away from being a contender. And personally, with the Panthers, I can't quite get there to that kind of assumption.
Yeah, but you're getting someone for 15 years, aren't you? Pretty much. Like that's the thing.
But my challenge to you, Connor, is name me a Carolina Panthers cornerback.
Dante Jackson. Yeah.
Hey, there you go. Okay, cool. Fair enough. You passed the test, but
yes.
My point is that they're not it's not a good, maybe even decent cornerback room at one of the most important positions at the moment in the sport.
Yeah, but I think if you can get a potentially Hall of Fame quarterback at the age of 25, you do it. You don't think about all the other stuff can come afterwards. You can like the Saints did when they had that one amazing draft. They got Ryan Ramczyk.
If you haven't got any first round picks.
I know, but you can make it work with free agency, second round, third round.
Yeah, no, I see your point. I just think it makes a lot more sense for a team like San Francisco, who, for me, it pushes their offense to a whole nother level. And yes, they may have one or two holes on defense, but I believe you could realistically fill those in the draft. And if you have Watson at quarterback with that,
talk about a bad cornerback room, Jesus.
Yeah, shockingly, that was a position I was thinking of.
But yeah, no, you're right. Deshaun Watson on the Niners, I mean, they're going to go into the season almost probably betting favorites to come out of the NFC. Like you're right. That does make more sense because they do have a more complete roster.
Yeah. As for him going to the Jets, I just don't understand that at all.
I don't get it.
But anyway,
no, I think also the Texans are. I mean, the Texans are. Let's face it, not Bill O'Brien stupid anymore. I think that they'll fight their best to keep him. I think they're going to have to let him go. But, they're going to favour an NFC side over an AFC side. They're not going to want to have to face Deshaun Watson in the playoff every year because that story comes back round of Deshaun Watson beating them in the playoffs and the Texans never make, I'm assuming the Texans get there. I mean, that's a long shot.
But they're not going to have to worry about that, Mark.
Let's say they happen to get there. Let's say they happen to get there. They're not going to want to see him until the Super Bowl at the earliest. So, they'll favour NFC, but... Yeah, I can't see him keeping him. I think they'll try, but it's never going to happen.
I think the Jets is a negotiation ploy. That's the only reason it could possibly be. I think that's just they're trying to get leverage. That's all.
Yeah,
every single day is a new team who is the favourite of Deshaun Watson. So far, I've seen the Jets, the Dolphins, the 49ers, the Broncos. And it's just these aren't even teams in for him. These are teams that Deshaun Watson has put at the top of his list. And it just changes every week.
He's like a kid writing his Christmas list with an Argos catalogue. He's just like, got to that section today. That looks good. I'll go there.